So about 12 years ago, I was 9 years old. I was home alone with my 12-year-old brother. We were supposed to go to my aunt's house to have lunch and wait for my mom there. We always did that because we were too young to stay home alone according to my mom. We got up at 10:30 a.m. I took a shower, then my brother. After that, we were both in the bathroom brushing our teeth and finishing up when we heard someone knocking on our door. Since every time someone knocked at our door, they turned out to be either salesmen or Jehovah's Witnesses, we kinda waited for them to just go away. After a couple minutes, I went to see if they were still outside through the window, and no one was there, which was a relief. We continued getting ready when we saw a shadow go by the bathroom window, which was kind of like a small square of glass that makes everything behind it blurry. We waited and looked, just in case it was just a bird flying by, when a hand hit it, clear as day. We got scared. We didn't know what to do. My brother had his cell phone, so immediately called the police. While it was ringing, we heard a loud bang on the door. Someone was hitting it with brute force. I don't know if they were kicking or ramming it, but it was one of the most frightening things I had ever heard. My brother told me to lock the bathroom door, so I did. It took 5 bangs before the perpetrator was finally able to bash through the door. The police answered. I remember the exact thing my brother said. He was whispering. His voice could be barely heard. Hello? There's someone in our house. I think they're stealing. Then a pause. We are at... And then he says the address. Another pause. I'm with my little brother locked in our bathroom. Please hurry. While all that was happening, I was sitting against the wall hugging my knees. It was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences ever. I could hear the man going through all of our stuff, emptying stands, going up and down the stairs, opening cabinets. He even broke a few cups and plates. Don't know why. Then I heard the sound that my cell phone makes when it turns off, and I remember leaving it on the kitchen table. I felt so stupid for leaving it there. Things continued for a couple minutes when I heard him trying to open the door to the bathroom. My brother got a hold of a big metal rod that was laying in the bathroom. He started kicking the door. Who is there? The man screamed. We said nothing. Another kick, then another. I felt I was about to have an anxiety attack. My chest started to ache. I had chills and it was really hot. I tried to remain calm, but it was just too much. After that, he stopped. We heard the door opening and then silence. We waited for almost 10 minutes before going out of the bathroom. The living room was a total mess. Lots of papers and books on the floor. The cabinets were open, cups and plates on the floor. In my mother's bedroom, the nightstand and closet were open, and everything inside of it was all over the place. Upstairs in our room, it was the same thing. In about 5 minutes, this man was able to go through everything we had and leave it a total mess. After that, my brother called my mom and she just ordered us to go to my aunt's ASAP, so we did. When we got there, I was a little more relaxed. My aunt was waiting for us with ice cream, probably because my mom told her everything and she wanted to calm us down a bit. We went back home at 5 p.m. My mother had told her boss that she had a home emergency, so she left early. She tidied up the house, cleaned up everything, and left it the way it was before so we could be more relaxed. I really appreciated her and my aunt's effort to calm us down and do everything so we didn't have to think about it. According to my mom, the police arrived after she had arrived, which was 3 p.m., 4 hours after the incident. She explained everything, but because of lack of evidence, nothing could be done. The man was never caught, and honestly, I don't think they even tried to search for him. The next few days, my mom was home with us. Luckily, no one was hurt, and he only took useless stuff, but at the time, I was really scared. To a 9-year-old, an experience like that can lead to PTSD. I'm lucky it never came to that, and I got over it after a couple weeks. So yeah, that's my story. Edit. Many replies are related to the 4 hours it took police to get here. My house is located on the far side of the city, but also the police in my country suck. I'll try to be brief as possible and stick to the relevant events that gave me this feeling, but the latest event happened last night and I didn't get too much sleep, so I apologize if I ramble or am unclear. My wife and I recently purchased our first home after the birth of our daughter. Everything was as you would expect for the first few months: painting, decorating, renovating, basking in our newfound slice of the American dream. You get the idea. Unusual things started happening several months ago. One day, I was getting home after work. I passed by a strange truck 2 or 3 houses down from ours. I say strange for a few reasons. We know literally everyone in this small neighborhood, and I've never seen this truck or person before. There's no reason for through traffic to come down our street, and the truck was driving very slowly, like put in drive and don't step on the gas slowly. As I pulled into the driveway, the truck flipped a U-turn and came back towards my house. Getting out of my car, the truck crawled by and the driver stared daggers at me as he passed, then sped off. I don't like to judge based on appearances, and I like to think that I don't scare easily, but something about this guy's eyes gave me a bad feeling. Obviously, this was weird. I mentioned what happened to my wife, telling her that we should be more mindful about security. When I told her the type of truck, my wife said, "That same truck drove by and the guy stared at me when I got home this afternoon. I thought he was just being creepy and checking me out." I tried to tease her a bit to lighten the mood, calling her cocky for assuming the guy driving by was checking her out. I didn't want to freak her out, but I was definitely freaked out. We saw the truck a few more times over the next couple weeks, either driving by slowly or parked down the block facing our yard. But one day the truck stopped driving by and we haven't seen it since. I sort of dismissed the whole thing as me being paranoid. Then other things started happening. In the past month or so, my wife and I have been hearing tapping on the windows at the front of our house at night. It's happened 2 or 3 times to each of us separately, always around 10 or 11 p.m., and always a soft but distinct. Now, our house is older. Creaks and cracks are not uncommon, but this sound was so distinctly intentional that my wife and I immediately looked at each other and bolted up out of the room. I had my wife and daughter lock themselves in the bathroom while I turned on all the lights and did a sweep around the outside of the house. Of course, I didn't see anything and was ready to dismiss the whole thing as more paranoia over something that probably had an innocent explanation. Until last night. Around 9:45, we heard our daughter making noise on the baby monitor. I waited a few minutes to see if she would settle down, but when it became clear that she wouldn't, I got up to put her back to sleep. The layout of the room is important to visualize this next part. This room is on the side of our house, but the exterior wall juts out a bit like an L shape, and the corner of the L is made of windows. If you're standing at the door to the room, you're directly across from these windows in one corner, and the rocking chair is in the other corner pointed towards the front of the house. One of the windows faces the street and the other faces my neighbor's house. A garden bed planted with small shrubs wraps around the outside directly underneath. I was sitting in the chair getting my daughter settled down. I had the lamp on so the room was softly lit. Once she fell asleep, I stood up and put her in her crib when something caught my eye. There's a figure standing about a foot away from the window in a bare space between the shrubs and the house. They were staring at us. I didn't look long enough to see anything more than what appeared to be a man in a light gray hoodie standing a few feet away on the other side of the grass. Sprinting from the room, I brought my daughter back to my wife in our bedroom, leaving her there while telling my understandably confused wife to lock the door. After turning off all the lights inside the house and turning on all the lights outside, I began moving from room to room, peering out the windows into the darkness. I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. Whoever it was must have taken off after seeing me notice them and made a quick exit. Obviously, I had some trouble sleeping after this. I spent hours checking security cameras and going from room to room looking out the windows into the night, hoping, but also not hoping, that I would see anything that could explain what happened. This morning I went outside to the spot where the figure would have been standing. I thought, hoped, maybe there would be a plant or something that I mistook for a person. When I got to the spot, I realized the figure had been standing exactly in a bare patch of ground about 2 feet in diameter, directly in front of the window. Part of me is still hoping that I'm being paranoid. The mind can play tricks on you in the dark, seeing things that aren't there, especially when you're a sleep-deprived new parent. But with everything that's been happening, I can't shake the feeling that there was actually someone out there last night, watching us. Please let me be wrong. Update. Nothing happened last night. I expected that would be the case for a couple reasons. First, so far all these events had taken place a week or two apart. The tapping this weekend and seeing the figure 2 nights ago were the closest in time of any of them. Second, this person absolutely realized I saw them, so I wouldn't expect them to be so bold as to come back the very next night. I still stayed up and kept an eye out though. To address some of the common questions, comments, and advice, we own several guns. I am very well versed in gun safety and a pretty good shot if I'm gonna brag on myself. Since we have a young child, I keep all the guns locked away, but after this past week, I've made sure to find places to store guns that are out of her reach, but within my reach for quickness. There are blinds, curtains, and solar screens on all the windows. The window in the story is dark, and the curtains were drawn over it that night. They're those semi-see-through white ones, so I didn't notice the blinds weren't drawn. All windows are checked and covered as soon as I get home from now on. All our exterior doors, deadbolts, and frames are reinforced. These are security measures put in by the previous owners that I thought were unnecessary, but I am now grateful for. Anybody that tries to kick their way in, the door will hold up long enough for me to get ready for them. I have purchased and installed additional exterior cameras with motion-activated lights for the more remote corners of the property. Our neighbors have 2 very alert dogs that are out all night, and they have been barking more often after dark the past few weeks, which is another reason we've been on edge. I took some pictures of the place where the person would have been standing and the view that they would have had inside the house. It got me spooked all over again for sure. This occurred back when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. I lived with my parents and brother in a previously abandoned house across from a large park. I don't have a lot of definite information for what happened exactly, but I remember one night changing into PJs and getting a really creepy feeling out of nowhere. I glanced out the window out of habit, but I was on the 2nd story, so I brushed it off as anxiety or something I didn't yet understand. That is, until morning. I woke up to a very bright light igniting my room to find that we had gotten our first snowfall of the season. My brother and I just stared out the window as kids do until my dad walked up behind me to join us. My dad looked down and asked if we had gone out the window the night before. I was confused. There was a screen on my window, so I didn't even see how I could have accomplished that, and I just said no. He didn't believe me and got angry, demanding I tell the truth, which I insisted I already told him. He huffed and made heavy footsteps outside. Soon I saw my dad on the ledge outside my window, looking at something. He reached down out of sight and pulled up a string of red Mardi Gras beads, glared at me, and asked if I was sticking with my story. So I leaned out as much as I could to check out what he was so angry about, and good lord, I saw it. Next to and all around my window were crisp, new, size 10-ish boot prints, tracking all the way from outside my window, with the tracks mixed with that of the early joggers and dog walkers. It took me years to put it all together, but that creepy feeling I had makes me think that my privacy was violated long before that morning discovery. Not a great start to Christmas, I will say that. This happened way back in 2017. I'm a female and was in 5th grade at the time. Me and my sister were sharing a room and we were just casually talking. She was in middle school at the time and I was in elementary. So keep in mind, I live in a 2-story house. The rail that goes along the stairs is like a metal gate, so you're able to see downstairs. At night, you can't see shit when you're looking downstairs. It's literally pitch black, so all you can hear is movement. So that night, my sister and I were just hanging out, and all of a sudden we hear a deep raspy voice that's coming from the dark, and it said my sister's name. We completely froze. Then a couple seconds later, it said my sister's name again, but with more force in the voice. That's when me and my sister slammed and locked the door. My stomach turned so much, and I had such a horrible feeling that I was gonna die. I always tell people it sounded like a clown that lost its voice. It was so raspy and scary, and it didn't sound normal. The only people home were my aunt and cousin, but they were asleep and my mom's boyfriend had just left for work, so me and my sister were the only ones awake, so we knew someone was inside. It got so silent that we could hear the footsteps coming up the stairs and we freaked out, especially since we didn't have anything to protect ourselves if something happened. I was on the phone with a 911 dispatcher while my sister was on the phone with my mom, and my mom made me hang up on the dispatcher for whatever reason. Anyway, my mom's boyfriend gets here, and not a single thing was moved. Everything was locked, and to this day, I still truly believe someone was with us that night. I think about it every day. I truly thought I was gonna die that night. I've been debating on whether to post this or not, but I finally decided that it's been long enough for me to talk about this. This happened to me and my mom a few months ago, back in October. It happened in a very rural part of New Hampshire, on a side road type of neighborhood. It was pouring out, as it had been raining for pretty much the whole day. My mom had just gotten back from down the street in my sister's car, and I was on the couch in the living room when suddenly I heard the doorbell ring. Our front door is a big glass pane, so we can look out from the inside, and someone can look in from the outside. Through this window pane, I see a man. I didn't get a great look at him, as I didn't have my glasses on. The man noticed that I had seen him, and waved as if he was trying to be friendly. For the rest of this post, I'll refer to him as Poncho Man. I got up and thought about opening the door for Poncho Man, but relented, as I couldn't properly see who it was. I didn't want to let a stranger into the house. Instead, I went down the hall to my parents' bedroom, where my mom was getting ready for work. She asked me what was up, and I explained to her that there was a man in a poncho outside our door, and wanted to talk to us. She went as white as a ghost. Immediately, she stopped getting ready, closed and locked the bedroom door, and started checking the windows to make sure they were locked. I asked her what was going on. My mom explained that as she was driving home, she had seen the Poncho Man. He had been standing motionless on the side of the main road. As soon as my mom turned down our road, he started to walk, presumably to follow her. She said the encounter was weird, but thought nothing more of it. Why would someone be out in the pouring rain, down a back road in the afternoon? It was like he was waiting for something. I started to panic as well. My mom called my aunt. The two of them are like best friends, and asked her what she should do. My aunt told her to call the police immediately, and so we did. We proceeded to pace around the bedroom, frantically looking out the window to see if we could see Poncho Man. From where the bedroom was angled, it was impossible to look at the front porch and see if he was still there, but we were desperate for anything. After what felt like hours, we finally saw the police pull up. We carefully unlocked the door and went down to let the officer in. We explained what we saw, and he agreed to scan around the neighborhood. As he left, I noticed there was something on the doorknob. I took it off and it was a political ad for a candidate that was running for office. It's possible that the Poncho Man was just campaigning for a candidate, but there's a lot of holes in that story. It was pouring out, so why would you go door to door? And why would you go that route in such a rural neighborhood? The houses are so far apart, you barely would make a dent on foot. The time doesn't make sense either. I and my mom were home, but it was about 4 in the afternoon. Most people would still be at work, so you'd probably get no response from knocking anyway. Eventually, the officer returned. He found the guy down the road and had questioned him. Poncho Man was able to ID himself, and he claimed that he was a political campaigner and was just knocking on doors for that reason. When probed further, conveniently enough, Poncho Man couldn't provide any other door signs, as the one that he had left on our house was the last one. That makes the campaign story even more absurd. Our house is in the middle of the street. It's not like we were the last by any means, so why wouldn't you bring enough for the whole street? Even the officer pointed this out to us and said that it was unusual behavior. Although the officer was suspicious of him, there wasn't anything he could do about it, as there was no way to prove intent. He told us to be alert and not to hesitate if Poncho Man returns. Fast forward a few weeks, and I start noticing that the police cars seem to be permanently stationed down the road from us, about a 3-minute drive. I got curious and asked my mom about it, and she said that there were multiple break-ins into houses down the road and the police were doing some sort of sting operation. The Poncho Man encounter and the break-ins may be unrelated, but considering how Poncho Man acted, I have a sinking feeling that they are connected. Thankfully, for the past few months, we haven't heard or seen nothing of Poncho Man. We got a new doorbell system with a camera, and the police left the area where they're doing the sting. I hope the whole situation is over and done with, and I never want to meet Poncho Man. Security advice, please. The twins, 14 years old, and I went to bed a while ago. I'm still recovering from COVID, so I fell asleep very quickly. I'm probably not entirely as quick thinking as usual. About a half hour ago, I was woken up because someone was knocking on the front door. I came down and, first mistake, opened the front door. A young man was there, asking about someone called James. My youngest brother is called James, so this confused me at first, but James has never lived here. I tried to tell him that he had gotten the wrong address, but he carried on talking, and it was clear that he wasn't talking about my brother. I told him again that he had the wrong address, and he became quite aggressive. He said I was lying and asked me to let him in so he could charge his phone. Then I will show you I'm at the right house. I tried to close the door, but he blocked it with his foot. After a brief struggle, I managed to get the door shut. When I closed the door, he carried on knocking for a while and yelled that he wasn't a scumbag and I was treating him like a scumbag. He wasn't gonna hurt me, he just wanted to charge his phone. Eventually he went away, but I am very shaken up and feeling very vulnerable. I am lucky because we have great neighbors, and I know if they heard something, they would have come running, but they clearly didn't hear this. How can I feel secure when there's only me and my kids in the house? We were taking self-defense classes, but I am very aware that tonight could have ended very differently if he had gotten into my house. Update: 24 hours after this post, my neighbors, both male, retired dad and his 19-year-old construction worker son, both built like brick shit houses. They had just found 2 lads hiding in their garden. As soon as they were found, they ran for it. The son grabbed one of them, and now they're waiting for the police. Their garden shares the fence with my garden. I didn't recognize the lad who they grabbed, but it's possible that his accomplice is the guy that tried to get into my house last night, or it may be completely coincidental. My neighbor's son has a high-end motorbike that is very desirable and is parked in the back garden for that reason. Be vigilant, people. I have had some people suggest on this thread and will definitely be hiking up home security, and I will never open the door again unless I know who it is, because I opened the door tonight when I heard my neighbor say my name. So I'll begin this with a quick bit of background info. I work in lettings and real estate, and part of this, you have to go to houses and do a yearly inspection of properties that have tenants in them. Anyway, so I organize an inspection, and it turns out the tenant won't be home, so he leaves the key out for us. He tells us that he's a spiritual person and keeps the bedroom for spiritual uses and would appreciate it if we didn't enter it, as he doesn't even let his partner enter it. Said something about bad spirits resulting in sickness and possible death. So whatever, gotta respect some sort of boundaries as it is his home. So me and my colleague go to the property and do a quick visual inspection of the ground floor and garden. We note that in the shed there's a dog pen, but no sign of a dog. I notice that the mirror in the bathroom is covered with a blanket. Weird, but whatever. We go upstairs and see the bedroom with the closed door and a "do not enter" penciled on a piece of paper attached to it. We enter the master bedroom and see a fur rug on the floor. It's not sheepskin and appears homemade. I believe it's the poor dog. I notice there's no other mirror in the house, so the only mirror in the bathroom is covered, and this is a tradition in many cultures when holding a wake, so the spirits don't get trapped in the mirror. We felt very weird about this and got the hell out of the house. Might be more of a creepy encounter to be honest, but I just wanted to see other people's thoughts.